This week's episode of the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast is brought to you by BioPro. Use the link down below plus code GDGD upon checkout, along with Hidden House Coffee. Go to hiddenhousecoffee.com and use code GDGD on your checkout to receive a discount. Now, enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Good Dude, Good Dad podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Ben. And today, our friend Cody Adams, he is a campus pastor at Vanguard University. I've got to get to know you a little bit more over the last 2 years, year and a half, give or take. And just super excited, man. I love when you find guys that are doing what they feel called to do, and they're doing it in a way that is genuine and true. Yeah. And from my interactions with you and my time getting to know you, that is one thing that is true. And I think it's one of those things that we were talking right before we started recording, but just in today's world more than ever, we need real people that actually stand on their truth and what that is. And so I just stoked to be doing life with you, man. And thank you for coming on today.
Oh man, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
We kind of just jump into every single podcast the same way, but we just ask you to tell us about yourself, and you can tell us as much as you want or as little as you want, and we kind of just see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an honor to be able to share with you guys. I think this is an incredible thing you have, just helping guys. And, I think this whole journey is just trying to figure out, how do you best serve your family and serve your kids. I think that's certainly been the case for me. We're originally from Chicago. We moved out here about 10 years ago. And I think that's about the time in which you can start calling a place your home. It feels like home now, but we still call Chicago home. That's where we were, kind of grew up. I was actually born in Redondo Beach.
Okay.
And my family moved around a ton. My dad had worked in the hotel business, and so he was in charge of hotel acquisitions. And so it kind of felt like a military family in the sense that we moved every year and a half. So my childhood was a little bit different in that I didn't have any solid childhood friendships until I was in junior high, because that was when we moved to Chicagoland and finally had a sense of rootedness. But yeah, every year and a half, we moved 8 times before I was 10.
Whoa.
And so it was just a lot, through my childhood. And then we get to Chicago, and my dad was kind of going through the whole hotel business again and was on to the next place. And my mom just, I think, said, hey, we've had enough. And they weren't Christians at the time or serving the Lord by any means. But I think they were just kind of at a place where, they said, we had enough and we're not moving anymore. And it was the first time my mom had ever had to work. And so my dad was looking for a new job. My mom was looking for a new job. And if you can remember, these are the days of the AOL chat room.
Yeah.
And so my mom was actually on a random AOL chat room looking for a place for after school care for me. And she was like, does anyone know of a program that I can send my son after school? And someone on this AOL chat room said, you have to check out this one church. They have a great program for young people on Wednesday nights. And so, not ever being to church before, my mom had taken me and dropped me off at this church program and stayed for this midweek Bible study. And just in her first time ever going to church, gets saved, encounters God, just kind of has this radical turnaround. And really from that point on, God just begins to do a work in my family's life. And I grew up as an only child, not because my parents wanted that, but because they never thought their marriage was going to make it. So they didn't want to bring any more kids into the world. And so really what happened from that point on, right about the time I was in junior high, is God really began to restore my parents' marriage and then restore our family unit. And my mom tells a story this way, that actually, she had this encounter with God, and then my dad would come to her and say, hey, whatever happened in your life, I want the same thing.
Dang.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so he just had his own journey. A couple months later, I'm giving you guys the long version.
Yeah, no, do it.
A couple months later, I had said, hey, I want to go to this summer camp. I had just met some friends and wanted to go to this summer camp program. And my mom, I think still being a new Christian, didn't really trust church people.
Yeah. That's fair.
Had said, the only way that you're going to this church camp is if your dad is your camp counselor. And so I don't know how they worked it out. Now being a pastor in my life, like the first question on the leadership application is, are you a Christian? And my dad certainly at this time would have answered no. So why they let him go to this camp, I don't know. But he ended up being my camp counselor and leading this whole like cabin full of, junior high boys. And so the first night of the youth camp, they do the, salvation call. Anyone want to give their life to Jesus? And I respond to the altar call, give my life to Jesus in that moment. I didn't know it, but at the end of the night, I had turned around and my dad had responded too to the same altar call. And so we had both responded to Jesus on the same night. And so it's just a really cool moment, like right in the same time that we can kind of point to. And yeah, I think from that point on, like there was just this kind of turnaround. I have early memories of my dad being a different guy and really just watching the change that has happened in him and happened in my mom. And that's kind of, I think the early memories that I have. And then, I don't know if I ever really wanted to do ministry as like hey, this is the thing. Not at least until I was in, had that moment in high school. I was on a missions trip to El Salvador and felt like there was a real strong sense of God's calling. But yeah, I went to Loyola University to study business, and my first business course miserably failed. And said, I can't do this. Ended up studying international studies, and then just through some lack of credits in order to graduate, ended up picking up a second major for theology. Fell in love with it, and I think just kind of like leading me to the place where I am today. We started a church on campus when I was a student at Loyola and doing some inner city outreach, and then ended up getting hired on at my home church in Chicago to be a youth pastor there. And just kind of like one yes to the next. And so, we're at this place now where I've been doing ministry for, I guess, the better part of a decade, and have loved every moment of it.
Yeah. How did you get out here?
So we were serving as high school pastors in Chicago, and I think just we had recognized that there was some transition coming. At this point, we were young, so we did the shotgun approach, and we were just kind of interviewing at jobs all around the country. And there was a call just through a relationship at a church down in Lake Forest that had said, hey, we're looking for a high school pastor to come. It was after like a real legacy youth transition, and so they were the ones that initially kind of brought us out. And so we came out for ministry and served as high school pastors there for just a really short season. And then ended up jumping on as young adults pastors at a different place, not too far from there. So
nice,
yeah,
crazy. And that's how you met the Hinzos, right?
Yeah,
is being out here.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I didn't tell you. He knows the Hinzos.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
they were serving with us.
That's so awesome.
Small world, but not.
Dude, it's all connected.
Oh, 100%. I want to go back to one thing you said of because it's something Jordan and I talk about. I mean, the name of our podcast is Good Dude, Good Dad.
Yeah.
And one thing that I am constantly learning in my daily life is how powerful being a father is.
That's right.
And you said that you have memories of your dad being a different person.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that because, again, there's power in that, right? Like, being a father is so much more than being like, oh, yeah, those are my kids, like, whatever, I love them. But if we take that and our mindset becomes different of, those are my children, and I get to do these things for them and with them and show them that there's so much more to life than just me being your quote unquote dad.
Yeah.
It is powerful. And you're recalling experiences, your early childhood of your dad being different.
Yeah.
Like, can you, I don't really have a question in that, but I just want to like go back to that and kind of talk about that more.
Elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for the first 10, 11 years of my life, my dad was, you probably like, what could be described as a workaholic. Like, he was pretty absent, and not because he was a bad dad. I think he was just kind of raised in a different generation. He was obsessed with work, and my mom was, not working at the time. So he was single provider and just gone all the time. And so I don't really have early memories of like those, bonding moments or, we of course had family moments, but like I think early on in my childhood, I was a lot more connected with my mom for that reason. And like their marriage was on the rocks.
Yeah.
And so there was just like this, tension at home that as a 10-year-old, you're not really privy to. Like, I didn't know all of what was going on. I just knew like there was, I guess this was normal for my mom and for my dad. And so I have these memories. I think of like how my dad was distant, or my dad maybe was absent, or how even conflict happened in the home. How, he would cope with different things or difficulty that had come up. And then I think I watched how there was this introduction. For me, like the pivot point was church, and that sort of introduction. That's kind of how it all began to happen. I'm sure my parents would give a different answer of sort of what had begun to take place in their own lives. But there was this real like, I think there was this moment of life change there. My mom, I think, had given her life to Jesus and said, I'm going to kind of go all the way on following God and all of what this means, and sort of becoming, the church would be discipled, I think, into this new way, and watching the transformation that would happen. We in church would talk about sort of this new life that would come as you follow Jesus, that your old life has passed away and your new life has come. And I think I saw that as a 10-year-old really practically. Like, there's these almost new parents that I have. And I think particularly for my dad, like, I watched him be more present. I watched him love my mom better. I watched him just kind of be more of a leader in our home, not just like prioritizing work, but like having just this real like fatherhood presence, like it was more than just being a father by default, where it's just like, you're my, like you're saying, like, there's just my kids, like, my offspring, whatever.
Yeah.
And, the interesting thing about my dad is this is actually, my mom this is actually his third marriage. And so he had to go at this, like, and not really succeeded all that well, so there was obviously a whole journey to that. But I think there was this, I think, pattern of, no judgment, but I think there's this pattern of brokenness that he's, I think, had modeled, this, certain pathway. And the only thing I think that I can point to from his past and his history to now, I think the father that he was at the later part of my childhood, and even to who he is today, the grandfather he is to my children, is sort of this turning point in his life of, I think, surrendering who he was. And I think having this moment of restoration from some of those past mistakes, and sort of, becoming brand new. And so that was really, I think, cool to see. Like you're talking about, it was having that ownership of saying, it's never too late to change.
Right.
Failure's not final. There's, I may have made some mistakes, but there's still a tomorrow ahead. And, I think that's so key. I'm just thinking, like, even on this podcast, there's, many guys who think like, man, there's mistakes that I've made and it's too late. But I think of my own dad's journey and his, just how many times he could have just thrown in the towel and given up and thinking, I'm just on to another marriage, or, forget about this. But it's a really courageous decision to say, I'm going to sort of go again and have a fresh start. And, for him, it was the power of faith that gave him that. And I think that was just transformative.
That's so cool. Yeah, they say that, like, on marriage statistics, every time, first marriage, the initial divorce rate, and then I think the second marriage, that doubles, and then the third marriage, the second one doubles.
Oh, wow.
Usually. So it's like there's a trend of, like, every time someone gets married, that divorce rate doubles the previous double.
Sure.
So, like, third marriages, I think, have like an 80% divorce rate, 90% divorce rate, which is crazy. And it's what I heard was, you just kind of take your problems into the next set of people, and it's like, if you don't change, nothing's going to change. So you just take your brokenness and you bring your baggage into a first marriage. Everyone knows that, right? Everyone, like, we're all married, right? You take all your problems into your first marriage, and then it's either you figure it out and you work through it and you change, or you don't, and there's bitterness and unhappy coexistence, or people get divorced. That's like what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you just take that same baggage. If you don't choose to change, you're just taking it to the next person, plus the hurts and wounds from before.
Yeah,
and then
wow.
just think about that compounding effect. But the fact that your dad was like, I mean, it's got, like, okay, we always say we're not a Christian podcast, but we talk about our faith openly. But like that's God. Like that you just can't that's just God. Like I hear that and like there's no other explanation for that one.
Yeah.
Is that God got a hold of your dad and your dad was like, yeah, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna do something different. And that's that's awesome, man. That's so cool. What a great example for you. Like what an incredible example. I'm gonna jump ahead now. You were saying that in Ecuador you had this. Is it Ecuador?
El Salvador.
El Salvador. I'm so sorry.
There's a door.
There's a door.
It's close.
Just White Orange County, White
Say
Orange
it
County,
fast
dude. No one will know this. You had this encounter. What?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
Like, what was
absolutely.
that? What took you there?
Yeah. So, kind of being a part of church for a while, going through the high school ministry there, I had a great high school pastor who is still in my life today, is a pastoral voice. And I think really just kind of becoming exposed to faith, growing in my own relationship with God, and having we had at our church really prioritized missions work. And so every spring, our church would take a missions trip. And so this one ended up being, we were going to take a group of high school students to El Salvador. There was a group of missionaries that we would work with down there. And so I just felt like it was the right thing to do. At 17, I told my parents, hey, I want to go down there. And we would serve for a week. The ministry was called King's Castle. And we would do essentially outreach in the city of San Salvador. Obviously, that country has been riddled with gang violence and has been so impacted by the Civil War and all of the sort of political turmoil that's happened, not to mention the cultural conflicts that, particularly for the young people in that country, they say that if you don't, if there's not a decision for Jesus or a decision another way, by the age of 5, the influence of gangs has already been so great. So essentially, like if as early as 5 years old, we have these young people that are turning towards gangs in El Salvador. So their mission at King's Castle is to really win the children and to say there's a better way and to sort of get violence off the streets. And so our mission there was essentially to have a week long where we would go and do programs of church services and inner city outreach and ministering. We'd throw block parties and we'd dress up as clowns and do kids programs in that way. But that would be like all day. We'd serve for 8-10 hours a day and then go back, and we would have these moments just kind of concluding the day at prayer. Actually, it's really cool. The area that the property, it's all themed, like it's King's Castle, right? So they've designed it to look like a castle. And they have on their property there, I still believe it's going today, what they call like a prayer fortress.
Okay.
And so from the moment this property is open, I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s, there's been 24/7 prayer happening from the beginning.
Dang.
And so someone at all times is just praying there. So you really get a sense when you go onto this property that it's almost like holy ground. When you go to like a really beautiful Catholic church, or you have these like holy sites, you get this like sort of spiritual experience that, man, this is more than just a building. That's kind of the sense you get when you're there, that there's just like this almost moment of transcendence, like, hey, something special is happening here. So that's where we would end our days. We'd serve all day and then we'd go pray, just to kind of conclude. So one of those nights we had prayed, and I really just felt like, man, this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing. And, there's no really other way to say it, but I feel like there's just this real clear sense that God had spoken to me and said like, hey, this is the work that you're called to do. Like I'm calling you into ministry. That was confirmed in that night. Like there was a verse that someone had shared with me, John 17:4, which has become sort of my life verse, which says, I have brought glory to you on earth by completing the work that you have given me to do. Mm-hmm. And that's the verse that I'd want on my tombstone one day when that happens. Yeah. But I think that was just like this clear sense. I knew like the work that God had given me to do was to bring him glory. And I wouldn't maybe have described it like this, but the language I've come to understand that is to be ruined for the gospel. Like nothing else could satisfy. I just had to do ministry. And I think that was just so clearly what God had called me to. So there was this like moment where I didn't know all what it would look like. I don't know if it was really ambition to even work at a church. I just knew like, hey, this is the desire, is to serve God, to bring him glory. And I think just to say yes. And it was one, I think, small step after that trip into the next thing that has led me to where I am today.
Yeah. How many churches have you pastored at now in your journey?
3.
So, I mean, 3 in 10 years, that's a solid like amount of time to be at each place. I think what we were talking about before we started recording is when people hear the term like pastor, like a Christian pastor, right? Like you think of this person that has everything figured out, and that, you know, because they are called to serve God and they are shepherding other people's faith and their journeys, and they're up on this platform, they're, you know, held on this pedestal of, oh, like these individuals that are pastors have everything figured out.
Right.
But I think one of the hugest flaws of people today is looking at these people in these religious capacities as the religious leaders of whatever organization they're a part of, and thinking that they are perfect, right? And you often get compared to, you know, people trying to reverse our words and saying, well, you're supposed to be Christ-like, which is true. But I think for me, and for a lot of the guests and people that talk to Jordan and I, is like, so many Christians have a bad rap, right? Or there's so many Christians out there that are living not necessarily the lifestyle that we're called to live. And so non-believers look at that and be like, oh, you guys are just hypocrites, or you don't have things figured out, or this person's so mean, but they're supposed to love God, all the things. And it relates me back to the point of you as a pastor being put on this pedestal. The church gets put on this pedestal. And what I like to always tell people and share with people is like, guys, you got to remember, like, the church is ran by man. Right. It's called and designed to glorify, love, and serve God.
Right.
But it is done by us humans, which none of us are perfect. And I'm going on this tangent, but I'm so passionate about, I don't want to use the word defending, but I feel like since 2020 till now, I feel like I have been put in this place of defending whatever pastoral people in my life at that time need. You know, I've had so many conversations, especially post COVID and cancel culture and world turmoil, more now than ever. But I don't know, I just feel so passionately and strong about like defending pastors, good ones, with the right intentions,
that
right?
Deserve defense.
Because there are some that have done things to themselves, and you know, I told our former pastor before he left, he was worried about my wife and I leaving the church. And I told him, I was like, hey, man, we're going nowhere. Because, you know, he knew there was some other pastors trying to get us to come to their church and, you know, jump on board and yada, yada, yada. And my wife and I told him, we were like, hey, we're not jumping ship. We are here until there's only 2 things that will make us leave this church. Either God calls us to move, or 2, you give us the reason to move by doing something that's not, you know, pointing towards Jesus. Those are the 2 things. And that instantly turned me into like almost like his shield. He would come to me for advice, or even just to vent, just to pour out. And I'm just rambling so much, but again, I'm so passionate about just getting people to understand, Christians and non-believers at the same time, like, you are just a man who has devoted your life to God and serving God, but it's the hardest job. And can you kind of just like talk to us through, like, first before we ask other questions, but like, what do you do to guard your heart against the outside noise while you're trying to serve God?
Yeah. Well, look, I think there's a lot of ways that can answer that question. I think you're picking up on a really important thing in just regards to pastoral ministry, and, you know, regardless of even just pastors, I think this is true of all of us. Like, it's a miracle, I think, that we are able to even, you know, in our imperfection, in our weakness, to do anything good for God. You know, I think that there is just this, it's still is mind-blowing to me, that God takes our weakness and he takes our imperfections and he uses them for something good. And so I think that is all the more true in the church. Yes, it's human ran, but there's something spiritual and there's something, divine ordained about it, that God takes the human elements of it and he somehow, like, this is, I think part of the miracle is that there's in our, weakness, that his glory is on display.
Yeah.
And he doesn't need us to be perfect. He doesn't need us to have it all together. That's actually the moment where I think if we can just be honest enough and, obviously be people of integrity, but vulnerable enough to admit those things, that, I think that's the place where, God's light shines through. I think part of, what you're saying, there's this tension, right? Where there's, I think of the great author Leonard Ravenhill. He says that the best of men are men at best. So even our heroes, even the greatest examples we have are just at the very best, they're still men.
Yeah.
They're still prone to failure. All of us are just one stupid decision away from, downfall. And so there is this element of, like, they say don't get close to your heroes. I think that's the same, we have a culture that loves to put people on pedestal, that loves this celebrity idea. The church is no exception to that, where we have, I think, no secret, like this celebrity culture around a lot of pastors. And I think that's caused some downfall in a lot of ways, because it was never meant to be that way. But also I think, we're removing that human element, just to remember, like, even the best that they can be, they're still men. And that's not to say that we are discounting their calling or discounting the gift that they have, but to recognize that no one is, invincible, and no one is, like, too, great that they can't be susceptible to this. And so all of us make mistakes. All of us have these points of weakness, and especially in the world that we live in now, man, it is hard work. And I think I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, I have made mistakes. I've done some dumb things, and I have just, I haven't always got it perfect, but I think God's grace covers that. I think so much more is being a person of integrity. I think that's some of what I wanted to sort of talk about. It's been a big sort of key theme for me. But you're talking about guarding your heart, and how do you go about, guarding to make sure. I think there is an element, I think, just to recognize your humanness. I think one of the greatest downfalls I see is people that think that they're invincible. Oh, that can't happen to me, or I'll never be that way. And well, hold on, because the moment we go down that road, then it's like, hey, if you become untouchable, then you become unaccountable. And if you're unaccountable, that's a really dangerous place to be. And so I always try to make sure that there's, like, healthy accountability structures in my life. Like, I'm accountable, like, first, I'm accountable to God. I'm accountable to my wife. I'm accountable to, solid groups of friends and guys in my life, to make sure that they've got, a pulse on who I really am. And to make sure that, I can't do anything dumb without somebody catching me.
Yeah.
I want to be, if I were to have behaviors or patterns or things out of control in my life, I would hope those things would get caught and they wouldn't just, go along in secret, or able to persist without somebody first recognizing. I think I'd like to think I've built systems to sort of safeguard me from that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just so key. But there's another element, I think, of what you're talking about in this, that yes, there's a human side of this too, but at the same time, I think that there is this, it's worthy of defending and saying, hey, this is a really special thing, and it's a holy calling. And I love that, your heart is to support your pastors and to build up the church, and in a culture that, where it's easy to point the finger and to tear down, to say, we're not going to be, a part of just criticizing, but we're going to be a part of the solution. And
I think it's important for me to do that, because I feel that if I don't help do that, there's other guys and girls that will, but I have always just felt like this innate like nature in me, and I get it from my dad, right? And just the my dad is a provider, he's a protector, and
Yeah, sure.
you know, a lot of people say they're that, but I've watched my dad do it his whole life, and I think it was just kind of built into me. And then going into the Marine Corps at 18, like you become this like protector, right? And
Wow.
even in the Marine Corps, God used me in ways that I didn't want to be used. I was like, dude, I don't want to be used. Like, I'm scared just like these other dudes, or I'm not qualified because I don't know all these things. Yeah, I grew up in the church, but I shouldn't be like the lay reader for our group. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, then I would see like guys get picked on, and I was always the smallest guy. I was tiny. And I didn't have like a growth spurt. I was like a super late bloomer. I didn't have a growth spurt till I was 19. And
At least you got one.
yeah, but dude, I was tiny. So even when in boot camp, I remember guys getting picked on, and I was like a smaller guy, and I would always go and defend those guys. And sometimes it was a good idea, other times it was not a good idea, but I didn't care, because I thought the person that wouldn't defend themselves should be defended when the time is right and the action was right.
Yeah.
And when it comes to pastoral, like in the church and our faith, like I'm going to defend that till I die.
Yeah.
And it's because it has radically changed my life.
Yeah.
And if I want that to radically change my kid's life, then that needs to be defended.
Yeah.
And somehow I just took that on myself to do those for the people in my, you know, sphere of influence. And I think it's just so important, man, because we're seeing it today more now than ever. Like our belief system and our faith in our God, the one God, is constantly attacked. And you know, we're living in a time where it's no longer we no longer have the ability to just disagree with each other, right? It's just so polarizing. Either you're all the way over here or you're all the way over here. And if you don't have these views, I hate you, or you're the evil, or you're this and that. And it's like, I think it needs to be defended more now than ever, but in a way that I'm learning of using proper discernment and having grace and having patience. And that's something that's been developing in myself more now as a almost 38-year-old dude. Like, I'm now learning, like, oh, you don't always got to go guns blazing.
Right.
Or you don't always have to defend something with a raised voice, or defend something and match their aggression. Sometimes it's better to just sit back and just be like, hey, like, I hear you.
Yeah.
You know, and empathize and take that approach, which is crazy because it took me 38 years to learn that. But man, I just think I keep rambling about this, but I just think it's so important. And I think what's more important is, and you said it, Cody, and I love that you said that, is being a man of integrity. We talk about integrity a lot. Yeah. To you, what is integrity?
Yeah. Well, I think before I answer that, I think it's true for pastors. I think it's just true for guys too. Like, I think your heart to protect and even to defend. I think I just was thinking as you were talking, like, that's such a important thing to have in your friends. And, you know, one of the things that I've just learned being a dad and being, you know, a guy is sometimes, like, friendships can be so surface level, and you know, sometimes it can just feel like lonely. And I think it really is so important to have the right kind of community. You know, there's probably many directions that we could talk about this, but having, like that band of brothers, having people to have your back, like when you don't have it all together, someone who's going to come to your rescue, someone who can pray for you, to fight for you, to be, you know, like a true friend. I think of, you know, there was a story in, I think it's 2 Kings, where, you know, everyone, whether you are a Christian or not, would know probably the story of David and Goliath, where you have David who fights the giant. And what people, I think, maybe don't always realize is that wasn't the only giant that David faced. There was many giants that David actually would come to fight, 5 more in his life. At the end of his life, 2 Kings, I think, talks about how there is these other giants that come. And I think it was really interesting, the detail that the Bible gives, because here you have David and Goliath defeats the giant with a stone. It's willpower. Him and God, me against the world. You're talking smack. Here I go, this young warrior, and then just whoop-ah, the giant comes down. It's like this awesome, like, I don't know why Hollywood hasn't made this movie yet.
Right.
It just would be like epic, right? But then later, it's not the stone that takes down the other giants. It's actually, it's not David that goes fighting. It's not the sword. It's not just like this, sheer force that defeats the other giants that would come. It's actually, the Bible talks about his friends and how it was Abishai who would, fight the other giant on David's behalf. So here's the giant that wants to kill David, and it's not David that fights it. It's Abishai. Abishai, his name literally means gift from God. Dang. And I think about that as you're talking about being a protector, coming to, I'm protecting the reputation of the church, or I'm protecting my pastor. I'm being a safe place. And hey, there's these battles that sometimes my friends are fighting, or battles that my pastor is fighting. And I just want to be that kind of friend that can fight when I need to fight. And I think that's just been like a story for me, that like sometimes it's not stones that work. It's actually friends that you need when the battle comes. And I think, so to your question, like, what is integrity? I think the way that I've come to understand this is, in a lot of ways, being like authentic and true. So the word, like, it's a big sort of core value for me. And integrity, the word, is actually a mathematical word. If you can go back for a moment to, I don't know if it was 3rd grade or 5th grade math class when we learned about integers.
Oh, yeah.
And, the word integer literally means it can't be divided. It's a whole number. And that's where the word integrity is rooted. It's this sense of wholeness, that I can't be divided. I'm not like one way. I'm not one way at work. I'm not one way at home, one way in church, but I'm a whole person, and I'm indivisible no matter where I am. This is what it is to be a person of integrity, that like no matter what space I'm entering, I'm the same me. And I don't have a different, tone about me when I'm with my work buddies, and a tone about me when I'm driving home on the 405. And, it's indivisible, and it's the same no matter where I go. And I think there is this, innately there's this conviction that comes where all of us go, oh man, like there's definitely parts of my life that I'm different. Yeah. And I think that's where integrity really becomes this goal that we can aspire to say, like, it's a sense of wholeness, that no matter where I go, no matter what season I'm entering into, no matter if it's a mountaintop, about good times, bad times, no matter if things are going my way or it feels like I'm, in just a really tough season, like I'm going to be the same. My convictions are resolute. I'm certain what I'm certain in. And it's just being that sort of, just really, I think, rooted in, I think integrity, my values don't change. My convictions don't change. The way I treat people doesn't change. And I think that is really a value, especially when we're talking about being a father, being a man, is to have, if you can be that sense of consistency, that sense of steadiness. I tell, leaders all the time, as I have a chance to share, like the best gift you have to give people is a sense of stability, to be consistent. Like no one should be wondering, what version of you am I going to get today? Like if you're that kind of leader or that kind of boss, like, man, that's just a tough environment. Like if you're so emotional that people are walking on eggshells around you to wonder, like, I don't know what version of you I'm going to get right now. I just encourage you, like, this is pursue integrity. Like be a little bit more resolute and steadfast in who you are. And so that's, I think, been the way that I've come to understand integrity and even what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Shoot.
We've talked about that a lot of times. Like there's this baseline that you want to be, and it's like, sometimes you're going to be here and sometimes you're going to be there, and you're trying to minimize that up and down and cross that baseline. And as you were saying that, I was like, oh, that baseline right there, that's integrity.
Yeah.
And it's like, and these little ups and downs are like these moments where, I stray from that, and I'm like, oh, nope, I want to be here. I want to be that consistent level for my family. That doesn't mean like emotionally unavailable. Like some people take that and they go, oh, that means that I have to just be like no heartbeat, no pulse, no, like not present. It's like, no, that's not what that is. It's just staying the same level everywhere you go, just being the same person everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Not creating that environment for even your family where you're like, oh, which dad's coming home tonight? I don't know.
Yes.
Is it stressed out dad? Is it, tired dad? Is it mad dad? Is it fun dad? Who knows?
Right.
I love that. We have actually, on the side note of the making the movie part, we have a friend of ours named Jordan. He wrote a script for, he wants to do a mini or a series on David's Mighty Men.
Yeah.
And he sent it to me, and it was exactly like what you were talking about. And I was
Perfect.
like, oh. It was when he wrote it off of when David was thirsty and his men went into the Philistine village and they pulled water out of the well and then brought it back to him just for a drink of water.
Yeah.
And it gave me chills.
So
it was so good. So if you guys know anybody that wants to make that, hit us up. I'm gonna put you in contact with Jordan.
So good.
So I love all that. So now you're at Vanguard, right? You
Yeah.
just became the campus pastor. Tell us a little bit about that. Like for the people that don't know, what does like a campus pastor do? And then obviously there's we can't get around the fact that what has happened over the last week, and I don't want to bring Charlie necessarily into all this, but a huge part of that was campus ministry.
Yep.
And what kind of role you play in campus ministry and what you're seeing as far as like the effects of God on campuses or just a solid male presence on a campus.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Jordan with Good Dude, Good Dad. Quick break. I just want to thank our sponsors. The first one being Bio Pro. The link is down below. Use code GDGD. Ben and I have been on for about a month now, and it goes under your tongue in the morning. There's a night version to help you sleep a little bit better. But I tell you what, I get home, and for the first time in a while, I actually have some energy to hang out with my kids, to play, to get my workout in, and the best part of all, to hang out with my wife at the end of the night and not feel utterly exhausted. So go check out the link down below. Next, Hidden House Coffee. Go to hiddenhousecoffee.com, get a bag or 2 or 10, and use the code GDGD for a discount on that. I want to say thank you to Rode for all this amazing equipment and the sound quality. And last but not least, go check out gooddudegoodDad.com. Get yourself some sweet merch. Sign up from our emails. And please like, share, and subscribe. It's all because of you guys that we are growing. We're excited to bring on more guests and serve you the best that we can. So remember, be a good dude, be a good dad. Get back to the show.
I don't know if I didn't really ever pursue campus ministry.
Right.
I think it was, like I was saying, it's just kind of one yes after the next. We became clear, like we're transitioning out of our last assignment and we're praying about what was next. And I had just wrapped up my master's degree at Vanguard and was approached by an opening that they had from internally. They said, hey, we think you'd be a great candidate for this. And, I never, I think, envision myself in the higher ed space. I'm a pastor at heart. I think I'm called to the church. And as we began to walk out the process, it just became really clear, like, this is, I think, part of where God is leading us. There's something really special happening. For those that maybe are local, there's a real spiritual heritage at Vanguard. The people that I tell now that I'm like, oh, I'm on staff over there, the amount of stories that I've heard just in the last couple months of, oh, Vanguard's made such an impact, or my time there, it really is incredible, the reach and the impact that school has had. And, I think my role is not necessarily in education or even in the academic side. I think my role at the school, at least in this season, is to come alongside students in their spiritual development. Vanguard has an unashamedly Christian heritage. And so part of our vision is not just that students would leave with a degree, but they'd have an encounter with God while they're there. And so, I'm there kind of leading the chapel services and helping to pastor those students, walk alongside of them in their academic journey. And so in a lot of ways, it does feel like church. The role itself is part-time. And so it's not like a full-time assignment. Right now we're also kind of just praying through and discerning church planting and some of that. So we're still very much involved in the church and in local ministry, do some itinerant, speaking in that. But yeah, at least in that, it was kind of just like this opportunity. And I think even in my own calling, I've always had, just this love for education. I've experienced a great divide between the academic or the classroom and the pulpit of America, where there's this like, in a lot of ways, I think there's this infighting between pastors and teachers, and they're not always on each other's sides. And I think I've come to understand my own calling as a bridge in some ways to, help pastors be more, educated and know theologically what they're talking about. And yet in the same way to help, instructors and professors have that, touch point on, hey, this is really what people are walking through. And it's not just, this lofty ideas, but here's how it impacts. So trying to be a bridge in that way. So that's some of the way I've come to understand that. And I think right now we have, in wake of recent events, I think it's really become clear to me that like the battleground in a lot of ways for, this country and for whether it be politically, spiritually, is really happening at the university. It's probably just, that age range is the most formidable age in your life. Yeah. That's why I've always loved young adult ministry. Mm-hmm. It's the most condensed season of life change that happens. You are studying and you have your degree. You probably will enter the workforce, find your career. Hopefully you find your spouse in this, season. There's just a lot of like really rapid life. You become adult for the first time. You make some of life's biggest decisions all in this like really short window. And it makes for a really great opportunity, I think, to have an impact on someone's life. Mm-hmm. We've taught our leaders for a long time, like faith can be won early on in junior high and high school, but I've seen how faith is lost in college.
More often than not.
Yeah.
Like, especially now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not just because young people are persuaded out of it, but I think they're really confronted with the first time of what do I believe? I've maybe experienced this in tradition. My parents have told me about this. I've kind of been raised in a certain environment, but the moment I break free from that, I have to decide who do I want to be and what do I really believe? And I think that's where these moments are really crucial. And so that's where I think we've sort of understood our mission, and what we're trying to do at Vanguard is, to walk students through this season of really radical life change, and that they can point to this season to say, it was at that place at that time where, like my own journey, I can point to these milestone moments where it was at that moment I gave my life to Jesus. This moment I was called to ministry. This moment something really changed for me. The same is true. I think I believe in moments. I believe in, what can happen in spaces like that. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude, I never thought of it that way. I mean, I've thought of it, but not the way you just like put it. You think of like that age range, like just basically graduation of high school to, I don't know, let's even just round up and say like 25 to 27.
Yep.
Right. So basically 18 to 27. Maybe we'll go 25 because that's the car rental age. So we'll go 18 to 25.
I said 25.
But even just in my own life, now that I was like replaying my life as you were saying that, I was like, the military guys, right? Like you do this thing, and I just said earlier in the pod, but like God used me in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And then I get out to just become this, for lack of a better word, a-hole of a human being for what seemed like a lifetime for me. It was 3 years, but I went from 18 to 22 being this one thing, taught this one thing, being used for God's like kingdom in this way. And then I come home and just had this radical shift of like, wait, I'm 22. We already started Hidden House. I'm supposed to have it all put together. But man, I'm like, I don't know what's going on with myself.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that reverse side where, I went towards the alcohol and all that stuff. And through that, I never stopped going to church, which is the funny part about my story is my parents did such a good job that instilling us growing up that like, you always go to church.
Sure.
And so I'm thankful for that. I mean, was it right or was it wrong in the amount that I did that? I don't know. But anyways, like I don't want to take so much time up, but basically like that is such a formidable age. And I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, that's right.
Mine came a little later. I was just thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking about this. Because my wife and I have talked about this a couple of times. My 22 to 25 felt like it took 10 years. And I was like, it just felt like it was just the craziest. It just felt like 10 years because there was just so much going on, so much bad, so much good, so much change, so much just all over the place. And then I looked from 25 to 35, which is, what I am now. And I'm like, it feels like a year and a half. And I'm like, how did those...
Crazy.
But it's like you said, those are all your formative, like, I had a lot of decisions between 19 and 22, but between 22 and 25 is when I went through like the majority of my just craziness of my life. And I'm like, it felt like 10 years and it was like 3 years. And now the last 10 years feels like 3 years. And I'm like, how is that? Yeah, it's because it was like, that's that giant growing pain process of it's honestly when I needed somebody in my life the most, which is exactly what you're doing is like those formative years when someone needs that guidance. Yeah. That's not only to be, I know it sounds like I'm tooting your horn, but not only to be like pastors, it's just crazy to me. It's like there's like two things that you're willfully, just that old saying, the nail that sticks out gets hit.
Yeah.
There's like two things that willfully stick their neck out to get hit is one is politicians, but everyone kind of expects politicians to be a little corrupt and to do things wrong. And then there's pastors who everyone expects to be saints, perfect, and never make a mistake ever. And both of you stick your neck out to be publicly ridiculed by everyone, by every decision that you make and any word that comes out of your mouth.
Right.
And you do it willfully. One does it for their own gain, and the other one's supposed to do it for the Lord. Some pastors don't, but I'm just saying most do for the Lord. And it's like, and then, that's such a, I forgot where I was going with that. I'm just like, that's almost insanity that you guys, like, I've never thought of a pastor in that way until you said it. I'm like, it's almost pure insanity. So
well, it shows
how do you,
their mission.
Yeah, it shows your mission.
Yeah, it's...
I forgot where I was going to go with that. It just, because it just hit me for a second, like, wow. But,
well, it's a sense of calling, and I think, I think it's ministry is something that you don't really choose. It kind of chooses you. And for anybody, I think, it's the best thing in the world, but it's the hardest thing in the world. Yeah. And if you can do anything else, you should do that thing. But for those who can't, I think it's so clear that, like, I was actually joking with my wife the other day. I'm like, if we won the lottery, I don't think my life would change all that much because I would maybe do what I'm doing for free, but I would still want to be doing what I'm doing. Like I would still be working at the church, building God's, kingdom. I would still be investing into people. Like, we'd maybe have fun trips or whatever. We'd be investing into things we want to invest in, but like my day-to-day wouldn't really change. And I think that's really the key is like, when you're in your calling is if you do something for free.
Yeah. Oof. Dude, that's literally a conversation my wife and I had. We're going through a big life change right now. And like a few months ago, I posed that question to her. I was like, if we won the lottery right now, would I continue doing this? And it was like, no. Well, what would I do if we won the lottery and like we had all the money? Yeah. Like what is something that I can do now that I would do then? And it was like, it led a whole change of events in our entire life. And now I'm like heading in a direction where I'm like, I would do that for sure. Like this is like, now it's like, okay, like if we won the lottery, my day to day, I'd probably pretty much stay the same, Yeah. So like that's such I love that point that you made. And that's something that if someone's wrestling, I feel like it's just a little gold nugget. If you're like wrestling in your life, you're feeling like unfulfilled, like just bleh, like take a look at your life and go, am I doing right now? Like if I won the lottery, would I continue doing it? And be like, no, then it's like, maybe reevaluate your life a little bit.
Right.
And see what you can do to course correct that. So we usually ask 2 questions. I'm kind of abruptly stopping
Yeah,
that, but
we got to wrap it up pretty quickly.
2 questions
been fun.
is, one, like, what to you makes a good dude and a good dad?
You kind of answered it a little bit ago, but
Yeah.
you can recap that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of what we've been talking about is so key to this. I think, I was thinking about this on my way over, is that there's this sort of ancient wisdom, and you can think maybe what you want about the Bible, but for me, it's been incredibly helpful that there's this idea that there's many teachers but few fathers. And I think the difference for me, as I've understood it, is that teachers instruct, but fathers impart. And I think that's what makes a good dad is, what are you imparting? What's left after you're gone? Giving yourself away. It's more than just teaching you. Obviously, I think I would hope that for my kids, they learn what they need to learn. That's why we have school. I also hope that I can be a good teacher and some really valuable things. But more than what they, are taught is actually what's caught, is what they see at home. It's who they're becoming. It's the place that I have in sort of guiding and making, I think this is a Remember the Titans reference, is that sort of the making of men, sort of the forming of who they are as people. And I think that uniquely is the role of a father, that's sort of why we have this role. That's what the family unit is sort of meant to be, is this leadership role of sort of directing and the forming of good people. And I think that starts first by being that yourself. I think that's something we talk about a lot in our home, is I want to be the example. I don't want my kids to see something different than, or like hear something different from what they see. That if I'm saying something that they see that already modeled. If I'm trying to instruct them in something, that they see that already modeled. So we can talk about this with faith, right? Like, I don't want to just tell my kids about faith. I want them to see that lived out in me first. So I'm not even really like, instructing my kids in like, hey, this is what the Bible says, and here, this is what it means. I just, we stop, and I wanted to see prayer lived out in our home, and service lived out in our home, and generosity lived out. That it's not even really something that they even have maybe language to yet, but this is just what we do as a family. Same thing, like as you love your mom, or we love others, or these I think key virtues of what we're trying to form in them is that we can be first the example. It's what they catch. And that sense of impartation, I think the gift that is already within them of who they're going to be. My job is to cheer that on and to help direct that into, I think a sense of that coming to life in a healthy way. So
I like that.
We had a guest on that says, does your, in their house, they would always say, does your video match your audio?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that. I love that. All right. Well, the last question is, if you had one, like for that person that's trying to take that one step towards video matching their audio, or to be consistent and live a life of integrity.
Yep.
What actionable step would you give them?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few. I think when we're talking,
at least one. I mean, you can throw out a couple.
Yeah. Actionable step. I mean, look, I think there's probably different members of the audience. And I think something that we've been talking about today is, I think, just a sense of honesty. Like, let's get honest about where you're at. And let's not try and just hold it together because that's what you think a man should do or a father should do. But let's just be real. Who are you? And I think it's okay to let people in on that, to really kind of begin that journey. I think another key part of that is getting the right group of friends around you. Like, you are the sum total of your friends and of your community. And so I think if you don't have that, that's a really key thing. There's many, I think, great ways to find that. But I would just encourage that. I think that's just been a game changer in my life. Yeah, and I think, I'd be remiss if I didn't, as a pastor, I think I have to say this, but try church, man. I think it's like we're seeing a resurgence, I think, in our current cultural moment, maybe for many different reasons. But I think there's something to be said about being rooted in faith, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, and being sort of a leader in that way. But I think those are some actionable items: is let's get honest, get in community, get in church.
I like those.
Awesome.
Those are 3 great ones.
Those are 3 amazing ones.
Again, we talk about it, but the accountability, that honest in friends community is accountability.
Yeah, that's right.
And we talk about it a lot. And it's the reason why I'm sitting in this room is the accountability I had when I was going through my craziness. But dude, thank you so much for taking the time and talking with us. We'll have to have you come back on one day and really break down the craziness of the pastoral side that people don't see. Because again, it's something that's passionate. I'm passionate about it. Maybe we could do like another
Part
pastor
2
with you.
Yeah.
And you guys can both just kind of, for lack of better terms, use it as your like just unloading season. But dude, thank you so much. Jordan will link everything. I noticed I say Jordan because I don't do any of this. I wish I could help him more, but this is not my world. Jordan crushes it, but we appreciate you taking the time to do this. And Mr. Jordan, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Guys, remember, check out everything down below. And as always, be a good dude, be a good dad.